but apparently I was mistaken.
The problem I have with that line of reasoning is, there is a statute, and presumably that statute was meant to address all of these issues. What you're saying is, we can ignore the statute completely, do nothing right, get no certification, get no approval. But at the end, if the financial town meeting exceeds the cap, we now look for some extraordinary relief, run to a court or run to the General Assembly. That can't be the intent of the process.
That's not what I'm doing by this. I'm trying to take the things that we agree on, and I thought we all agreed on this part to do it. If you don't want it in advance, it's not a big deal. I mean, it's up to you to decide whether you want it in the docket in advance or not. That's all you're really deciding on now. So if it bothers you by the message it sends, vote no. If it doesn't, vote yes.
You know, it may well be
I would move the
defer something
well,
like this, and I'd be happy to take, if we get what Ms. Durkee has asked for, that is a financial town meeting in September. It may well be that we have an opportunity to take a look at this again. And I'd be willing to take a look at it, but it would seem to me if we're pushing to get a financial town meeting in September, there's no excuse not to go through the processes, at least that are not ambiguous. And one of them certainly requires a majority vote of the town council authorizing Mr. Gonzalo to go to Providence and then getting a certification from Providence.
I agree with it.
I understand.
I
Let's
agree
at
with it.
least be, those steps, if we're looking to a September date for a financial town meeting, we have no excuse to run to a General Assembly someday or run to a Superior Court and say, can you fix the mess we've created here?
If you want to just defer this until we proceed to get an answer with regard to deferral of the meeting, I don't have a problem with that.
That's what I would prefer. I would prefer that.
But then we'll argue about it.
Well, in the spirit of moving things along, I would make a motion that we defer action on the solicitor's proposal till a later date, or should I say, to a later date.
You got a motion pending, though.
That's exactly right.
You've either got to vote on the motion, if the motion pending is not withdrawn, you've got to vote on the motion pending first.
What's the motion? Yeah, motion.
I made a motion to go forward with putting this at the back of the budget.
Was there
But
a
I'll withdraw that
Okay, I was
motion.
gonna say, was there a second?
Seconded it.
Louise did,
Louise
okay.
seconded it.
Yeah, I'll withdraw the motion.
And I'll withdraw it, and I'll certainly support a motion
We'll
to
look
defer.
to when we know when we're
Not
going to
kill
have
it.
the town meeting.
Okay, a motion to defer, wait, there's a motion to defer to a later date.
I'll second that motion.
Any further discussion?
May I make a suggestion? Either table it,
Yeah.
or defer it to a specific date, I think. And given the Open Meetings Act concern, maybe you want to continue, why don't you continue it to the first regular meeting in April? And at that point, you don't want to work, you can still continue it, but that way you'll be able to take it up without having an open meeting this year.
Yeah, upon the advice of town legal counsel, the town solicitor, I will modify my motion to say we will table the motion until the next regular scheduled council meeting.
I will second it.
Okay, we have a motion, second, to table to the next regular council meeting. Further discussion, seeing none, all those in favor? Okay.
No, I still, I wish we could get an answer to the fact of if you don't do something, what's gonna happen, what happens to that budget? I mean, I think that's such an important question, because I still see that situation as if the cap is exceeded, that money coming from the general fund, and putting us in a very precarious situation, because we're already under our reserve, trying to build that back up. Because I see the court saying, those people motioned and spent the money, and the state saying, you didn't ask for, you don't have the ability to, and you come up with it in another fashion. And, that's a scary thought.
If I could speak to that, Rob Holder. Isn't that similar to the situation we would be faced in right now, that if we lost the fourth quarter payment, just because the town count or the financial town meeting authorizes a certain level of expenditures, I believe the schools have to be funded as authorized, but you, within your discretion, don't have to spend all that money. You're really in the same situation right now. If you lose that third or fourth quarter payment, you just don't spend it, even though you had the inherent authority to spend it.
But the problem is, when you have the contractual obligations that we have, you have to meet those contractual obligations. If that number puts you below that, you know, if you have a mandatory requirement that there be a minimum staffing in the fire department of 7, you can't say, I'm only gonna put 5 because I don't have the money. I mean, you can't do that. It's the same way with the police department. And again, you know, everybody thinks that the easiest situation is we'll just lay off employees. Well, when we lay off employees, when you're self-insured, unemployment, we pick up the unemployment tab, we save the benefit tab. Well, the savings there is so small, you'd have to probably let the whole department go to reach the number you had to reach. So it gets to be a scary thought when you can't meet, you know, contractual obligations. And the other thing is, then it's like having everybody there with nobody doing anything, you know? Well, we've got the police, and we're only gonna send a car out if there's an emergency call. We're not gonna patrol the streets. You know, I'm just saying, I just see this thing when the numbers get to be so skewed, and you don't have a clue as to what can transpire at the financial town meeting. Everybody who gets upset with an item in the budget, who brings another 10 or 15 people with them, you know, then you start getting some crazy motions, you start getting some crazy numbers, and you start getting some emotional responses, you know, that I think we've all seen it, where they just kind of go hog wild. And, you know, we're trying to put something that, I see us putting something forward that's a reasonable, responsible budget that we can get some consensus on, and, you know, and move forward. We're gonna have tough times. This is not the end of this. I just don't wanna see us get in a situation that's even harder to get out of. And I still have that fear, because I still remember that situation. Once you've done it, once you've appropriated the money, what has to be spent will be spent. We'll make cuts, there's no doubt about that. Because, you know, you can't spend a lot, what you don't have. You don't have to reach that, but this is how much you can raise from the levy, this is where it's gonna be, and anything else you spend is gonna be wherever that number falls. And I have to agree with Mr. Lambert, it's so nice when you got a set of rules you know you're gonna work by, and then you work to that set of rules. And our financial town meeting should have been that way a long time ago. This budget cap situation is only 3 years old, and it's every year it's been an issue for the 3 years it's been in existence. So whether or not there is a resolve to this situation is kind of hard. Every time you pick up another document that the state's putting out, whether it be here's the language of the legislation, here's what they put out that says how it's going to be implemented, here's the policy that they're going to use. Jesus, this sounds a little bit different in this. You're looking at this and you're reading this, and you're getting two different things. This is basically saying, once you've asked for it and it comes back, it just does go to the financial town meeting. It's out of the council's hands. So, I mean, that's the way this reads. And you read something else and it says, or, and you go, well, you know, do they both have to do something? So they're confusing the crap out of even us. And, you know, you can't get an answer because there is no answer. The General Assembly won't even answer it. Well, no, we gotta move on.
I just wanted to say that dilemma that you're worried about is similar anytime you have a budget and then you get a revenue shortfall for whatever reason. I was just...
Yeah, well, and some of them when it's one item and stuff like that, we did cut back in the third quarter payment. We're looking at possibly the fourth quarter payment, and we're looking at every time a different set of reductions we have to make. And it just keeps getting us further and further back to difficult times. Mr. Tights.
Thank you, Mr. President, members of the council. Item